大家好，我是 Shang Guan Jie Wen. Today I want to talk to you about how to counter arguments by foreigners who claim that the economic data coming out of China is not correct. So we're going to go over this in some detail. Now obviously Agricultural Bank of China, China Construction Bank, and Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, also known as ABC, BOC, CCB, and ICBC, are the four largest banks not only in China, but four of the largest banks in all of the world. So a lot of foreigners are they messing with their economic data? How do we know the things that they are saying are true? Well, it turns out that every 5 years, the government regulations require that they be audited by a different international auditing company. And there are four, the big four international auditing companies: Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, and KPMG. These four auditing companies, accounting companies, each are valued at roughly 30 to 50 billion US dollars in and of themselves, their own investment portfolios, in addition to doing auditing. And they do auditing all over the world for banks and financial institutions everywhere in approximately 150 to 160 countries each. And each of these four same institutions are the institutions that audit all of China's banks, including Chinese big four banks. In addition to that, import-export data is another different argument that comes up. How do we know that the import and export data that China is talking about is accurate? So we're going to talk about the GAC or the GACC, which is the General Administration of Customs China, so GAC or GACC, depending on whether you're including China in that or not. And how do we know that the data coming out of the GAC is accurate? Firstly, the GAC does its own internal audits, but it also follows the WTO and the WCO rules of harmonized system for international import and export. So the WTO obviously is the World Trade Organization. Most of you will have heard of that. And the WCO is the World's Customs Organization. And it is the one that has harmonized system, which GAC, the China's General Administration of Customs, follows those protocols. In addition, they list every single import and export transaction which can verify at home countries, and people do. So if you go to CNBC or Reuters, they will have articles verifying, talking about the transactions that have happened in terms of exports and imports coming in and out of China. Another thing you'll hear foreigners sometimes say is China has a lot of debt. What about China's unpaid debt? China doesn't have debt. Now, it is true that some of the local governments in China had accrued some debt up until 2017 or 2018, but the central government of China has reined all of that in. And it's actually true that China has a forex or a surplus of $3.125-ish trillion. That means China doesn't have debt as a state. In fact, it has $3.25 trillion extra dollars just sitting around that they can use for whatever they decide to use that for later. Whereas the United States by 2020 had a national debt of $26 trillion. So China has a surplus of $3.25 trillion. The United States has a deficit of $26 trillion. In addition to that, let's look at another economy really quickly, the United Kingdom or England. They have a debt about 2 billion pounds sterling. That is roughly 110% of their GDP, which means they owe more money than their entire nation makes in a year. So that's another argument that is easy to counter. Finally, I want to talk about nations as their total percentage of global GDP. The United States is the #1 economy in the world right now with about 26% of the world's economy. And China's #2 with about 16.9% of the global economy. After that, it gets really small. You have countries like India, Brazil, the United Kingdom, and Canada at #10, which comprise the rest of the global economy. After China, the next four governments combined, their total GDP is roughly equal to that, slightly less than China's GDP, which puts the United States and China at a huge advantage and all the other countries very small, the United Kingdom being only 3% of the total world economy. Most honest forecasters put China's total GDP eclipsing that, passing that of the United States around 2030. If you watched my video on the dollar slide and the weakness of the dollar, that process might actually accelerate, meaning that China's GDP as a percentage of total GDP in the world will be #1. So the next time you hear someone saying, oh, we don't know or trust the figures coming out of China, tell them to do their research. All right, we'll see you next time, Xigua. Bye-bye.